she was usually invisible. A shadow on the streets of Atlanta, a wet silhouette under the overpass light. But one day, she was the only one who stopped. A homeless woman reached out to a crying boy, unaware that his millionaire father was watching from across the road. That single moment would change not only her life, but the lives of many others. Rain tapped on the hood of her thrifted parka like a tired drumbeat. Ava pulled it tighter, though the seams near the zipper were frayed and useless. Her shoes were soaked, the soles squelched with every step as she walked along the edge of the road where suburban Atlanta gave way to industrial quiet. Behind her, a used-up gas station blinked open in sputtering red. Ahead, nothing but wet pavement and the low hum of traffic on the freeway. The last of her money had gone to a gas station burrito, microwaved until it sagged in the middle, and a tiny bottle of apple juice. It hadn't warmed her up much, but it had been something. Ava's backpack, water-stained and duct-taped along the sides, dug into her shoulder. She didn't mind. Pain was grounding. She scanned for an overhang or a bridge, somewhere to ride out the night without being told to move on. Most nights she went unnoticed. Sometimes someone noticed, and that was worse. The underpass came into view, wide and cracked with graffiti older than the shoes on her feet. Cars roared overhead. Down here it smelled like mold and old cigarettes, but it was dry. Or dry enough. She stepped off the sidewalk when something flickered at the edge of her vision. A kid. No more than 8, maybe 9. Sitting on the curb next to a twisted bicycle. Front tire bent sideways. Handlebars lopsided. His hoodie clung to him, soaked through. Mud on his jeans. Hands trembling in his lap. Ava slowed. No one else did. A silver SUV passed without pause. A couple jogged past on the opposite sidewalk, earbuds in. The boy was crying, but no one heard it. She looked down the road, then back at the boy. "Hey," she said softly. He didn't look up. She took a step closer, letting her voice stay low. "You okay?" He sniffled, rubbed at his nose with the back of his hand. "My dad was supposed to come back. His phone's dead. My bike broke. Been out here long." He shrugged, shoulders hitching up toward ears. Silent cry. She crouched, ignoring the pain in her knees. "You cold?" He nodded. She didn't have much, but she had a scarf. It had managed to stay dry inside her coat. She tugged it free. Thin wool, dark green, and wrapped it around his shoulders. He didn't stop her. "You hungry?" He didn't answer. Ava reached into her backpack, a Ziploc with the last cinnamon roll from a church breakfast 2 days ago. It was crushed flat, icing smeared along the plastic. She tore the bag open and handed it to him. He took it with both hands. Ate in silence. The rain thickened around them. Cars passed. One honked. She didn't look up. She just sat beside the boy, on the wet curb, feeling the ache in her spine and the weight of the moment. She didn't ask his name. Didn't tell him hers. She just stayed. She didn't see the black SUV pull to a stop half a block down. Didn't see the man behind the wheel gripping it tight, knuckles white. The man had been searching, panicked. The boy, Jaden, had slipped away during a delivery stop, wandered too far on his bike. He spotted the green scarf first, then her. His son wasn't alone. Carl Maynard left the SUV running. Door slammed behind him. He crossed the street quickly, shoes splashing through puddles. Ava stood when she saw him approach, slow and deliberate. She stepped back, hands up, instinctively apologizing for a thing she hadn't done. I wasn't. I just saw he needed. Carl knelt by the boy, hands on his shoulders. Jaden. The boy looked up. Dad. Carl closed his eyes for a second, relief crashing through his chest like thunder. He stood and turned toward Ava. She lowered her eyes. I'll go. No, wait. His voice wasn't sharp, just surprised. You stayed with him. She nodded, unsure what to say. Why? He asked. A pause, then, because nobody else did. For a moment he didn't speak, just stood there, water beading on his expensive coat, lips parted. She didn't expect gratitude, certainly not understanding. He studied her, not the way people usually did, calculating, assessing. Something else. Oh, what's your name? Ava. He nodded slowly. Thank you, Ava. She dipped her head. Take care of him. She turned and walked into the rain, scarfless. The next morning, the shelter smelled like disinfectant and overcooked eggs. Ava sat in a hard plastic chair, watching the steam rise from her styrofoam cup of instant coffee. It was hot and bitter, but it was real. The moment with the boy. She'd tried not to hold on to it. People didn't stay grateful. The world didn't work like that. Some volunteers said someone was looking for her. Tall white man, suit, asking for a black woman in a green scarf. They laughed. Ava ignored it, until he walked in. Same man, same dark coat, but less polished now, like the rain had soaked something deeper than fabric. Her name's Ava, one of the kitchen staff said. She's over there. He approached quietly. Not the way people like him usually moved, like they owned every hallway. She tensed. You found me. He nodded. Wasn't easy. What do you want? To say thank you. Properly. You already did. He paused. Let me take you somewhere warm, just for a meal, a conversation. She shook her head. I'm not a story. He looked puzzled. I'm not something you do to feel better about your day, she added. He exhaled, stepped back. Okay. He left a card on the table beside her coffee. Didn't push it. Hours later, she turned it over. Carl Maynard, CEO, Main Core Construction. Big name. She didn't call, but he came back. Third day, fourth visit. Persistent but quiet. Then he sat beside her, brought 2 coffees. Didn't talk at first, finally. I used to think people like you chose it, or messed up bad enough to deserve it. She didn't look at him. My mom died of cancer, he added. Hospice nurse stayed longer than she had to. Used to sing to her. Ava blinked. I think about that woman sometimes. Never even knew her name. Ava's voice was flat. I was a nurse. Grady Memorial. Left when my mom got sick. Couldn't keep both jobs. He looked at her fully. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Silence. Do you want help? He said finally. No. Why not? Because it's not help. It's guilt. He rubbed a hand over his face. Then what would it take? She looked him in the eye for the first time. A job, not a favor. He leaned back. I can do that. She laughed once, dry and short. Right. I'm serious. We're starting a pilot, community initiative for housing transition. We need someone with ground experience. not a clipboard, someone who knows. You think I'm your project? I think you're the first person in a long time who didn't look away. She studied his face. Sincere. Still unsure of his own motives, maybe, but something real behind the eyes. I'll come by, she said. Monday, 9 sharp. He stood to leave. She stopped him with a quiet voice. Don't clean it up for me. If it's charity, don't bother. He nodded once. It's not. When he left, she let herself hope. Just a little. The rain came again that night, but it didn't feel quite as heavy. She didn't believe it had changed anything. Just another night. Another act of human decency no one would remember. But someone did. The man she least expected had gone looking for her. Not out of guilt, not out of pity, but because something in her reminded him what it meant to care. Still, for Ava, hope came dressed in doubt. The shelter coffee was worse on Mondays. Ava sat outside the front doors anyway, jacket zipped high, hands tucked into her sleeves. The sky was a flat gray sheet, and the air held that early morning cold that found the bones. She hadn't decided yet if she was really going to go. Half of her wanted to walk to the next food pantry and forget the whole thing. But at 8:37, a black SUV turned the corner. He was early. Of course he was. She waited until the clock on her old flip phone turned to 8:58. Then she stood, adjusted her bag, and walked toward the curb. Carl stepped out. No driver, no assistant. You came, he said. You're surprised. A little. I said I'd come. He smiled. It was slight. Careful not to push. The drive was mostly quiet. He asked if she wanted music. She shook her head. The building surprised her. It wasn't glass and marble. It was old brick, renovated maybe, but with rust on the stairs and a mural of handprints on the wall near the entrance. Someone had added fresh yellow flowers to a planter by the door. Inside, the office smelled of brewed coffee and printer paper, clean, but lived in. Ava followed him down a hallway. She noticed the way people looked at her. Not unkind, just unsure, curious, some wary. She walked straighter, chin up. He opened the door to a small conference room. One long table, 4 chairs, whiteboard, half-erased notes. He gestured for her to sit. We're launching a pilot, he said. Support to housing transition for single women and mothers. The state's funding part of it, the rest. He hesitated. Comes from us, from me. She said nothing. I want you to help us build it. You've been there. You know what works, what doesn't. I'm not a case manager. I don't want a case manager. I don't have a degree in this. You've lived it. She folded her arms. And that makes me qualified. He held her gaze. It makes you essential. A long pause. I'll try, she said finally. But if your people treat me like decoration, I'm out. He nodded. Deal. Her first day, the elevator mirror caught her reflection and almost made her turn around. The woman staring back looked out of place. Coat still stained, pants too thin, hair pulled into a low knot with a rubber band. But her eyes didn't flinch. The receptionist looked startled when Ava gave her name. She buzzed someone without meeting her gaze. A young woman came out, white blouse, heels, clipboard. Hi, Ava? Yes. I'll take you to orientation. They walked in silence. Ava noticed the girl slowed slightly when they passed open offices. A small, subtle thing, like she didn't want to be mistaken for Ava's peer. She kept walking. The meeting was with 3 department heads, men in crisp shirts and the kind of expensive watches that whispered instead of shouted. One of them, a man named Luke, leaned back in his chair when she spoke. "So, what exactly is your role here?" he asked. Ava didn't answer right away. "I'm here to tell you what happens after your grant money runs out," she said. "And when no one follows up and the same woman's back in the same shelter with the same bruises." Luke blinked. "Right." The others made polite notes. Carl wasn't in that meeting. The first week, no one asked her opinion. Second week, she spoke anyway. She pointed out that intake forms were written in bureaucratic English, the language of being talked down to. She suggested starting with a hot meal before a questionnaire, told them most women won't talk about trauma if they're cold and hungry. They smiled politely and returned to their spreadsheets until the Thursday meeting. Ava was early, as always. She sat at the corner of the long table, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup. The door burst open. Jaden, small jacket, backpack, sneakers still wet at the toes. His eyes scanned the room and landed on her. "There you are," he grinned. "I drew something for you." He ran over, digging in his pack, produced a crumpled page covered in bold strokes of blue and orange. Carl walked in behind him, out of breath. "Jaden," he said gently, "you're not supposed to." "It's okay," Ava said. She crouched beside the boy, smoothing the page. The other staff watched. No one spoke. Jaden leaned in. "That's you," he pointed. "And that's me. And that's the rain." Ava smiled. "You're a good artist." He beamed. Carl looked at the table. "She's the reason I found him," he said. "I don't say that lightly." Something shifted in the room. When Jaden hugged her neck, Ava didn't move for a long time. That night she sat on the stoop of the shelter, watching the traffic roll past in streaks of red and white. Her hands still smelled faintly of office paper and cafeteria soup. She didn't feel like a guest anymore. She felt like she might belong, not because of Charity, but because of the boy, the scarf. The moment she didn't walk away, she looked up at the shelter's flickering porch light and whispered, "Don't let me mess this up." No one heard, but in the silence, the night felt like it was listening. She wasn't supposed to stay. She was meant to pass through, unnoticed like so many others. But now she had a desk, a nameplate, and a ripple of change growing outward from one quiet moment in the rain. Ava had given something when she had nothing. Now she was building something meant to last. Not for herself, but for every woman no one else had seen. The office door clicked shut behind her, and the muffled sound of laughter drifted in from the break room. Ava exhaled. She still wasn't used to it. The way fluorescent light warmed over clean floors. How her name on the door didn't feel temporary anymore. A small desk plant someone had left her was starting to bloom, and the mug beside her keyboard read, "Hope is a verb." She didn't know who gave it to her, but it stayed. That morning, her inbox was already full. A new shelter on the east side was joining the pilot. A community clinic had offered to donate space. And a woman from Ohio wrote asking how they'd trained their intake mentors, former clients turned guides. Ava ran the coordination now, not in title. Titles were still political, but everyone came to her. She liked being behind the curtain. That's where the real things happened. One afternoon, she stood at the whiteboard in the main meeting room, sleeves rolled, her handwriting looping across lines. First touch point, comfort before paperwork. A woman at the table, older, silver curls and a stiff blazer, squinted. You think a bowl of soup fixes trauma? Ava didn't flinch. No, but it helps someone sit long enough to talk about it. The woman leaned back. You don't run a clinical program. No, Ava said. I run one that works. There was a beat of silence, then a slow nod from across the table. By spring, the program had a name. Second Wind. Ava didn't choose it. Carl had. Said it reminded him of what she did for Jaden. Gave him his breath back. She didn't argue. It wasn't about names. What mattered was that the first woman who came through their doors wasn't scared to take her coat off. That she asked for seconds. That she stayed the night. They started small. 2 beds turned into 6. A part-time nurse. A volunteer network of grandmothers who'd been there, survived it, and now walked others through the fire. Ava trained them personally. She stood at the front of a group one Thursday, eyes steady, hands open. I'm not here to fix anyone, she said. We don't do saving. We sit. We listen. And we remember what it was like when no one else would. A few heads nodded. One woman wiped her eyes. Afterward, Carl found her in the hallway, arms crossed, watching the new group laugh over snacks in the common area. You built that, he said. She shook her head. They did. I just didn't get in the way. He smiled. Same thing, sometimes. Not everything went smoothly. There were council meetings where she sat silent while older men asked why this kind of funding mattered. There were spreadsheets that didn't add up. Once, the power went out during an inspection, and there were whispers. Still, about her. From staff who didn't know or didn't want to. She's not qualified. She was homeless. She just got lucky. One afternoon, Ava stepped into the elevator and heard 2 voices hush behind her. She didn't look back. She didn't have to. Later that week, a young man from HR approached her in the hallway. Just wanted to say... He hesitated, eyes darting past her shoulder. My sister's in one of the shelters you helped fund. She told me last night she feels human again. Ava didn't know what to say. She just nodded once. The words were still stuck in her chest when she sat down at her desk. The photograph sat framed beside her computer. A moment frozen in rain. Jaden wrapped in her scarf, head leaning on her shoulder. Jaden still visited. Less often now. School and baseball and his own little life pulling him forward. But every time he came, he asked the same thing. You still help people. And Ava would always answer, trying. In June, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published a piece on Second Wind. The photo was in color. Ava didn't like how her expression came across. Too serious, too exposed. But the headline made her laugh. From shelter floor to boardroom door. One woman's quiet revolution. She didn't tell anyone about the article, but someone pinned it in the break room. A post-it under it read, She's one of ours. That same week, Carl brought her into a foundation meeting. Suits, glass water bottles, folded napkins. Someone leaned in, brows furrowed. She doesn't exactly fit the format, does she? Carl didn't blink. That's the point. The man cleared his throat. We're just saying, optics matter. Carl turned toward Ava then. You want to speak? She looked around the table, fingers resting on the sleeve of her blazer. I used to think I had to wait for someone to give me a seat, she said quietly. Now I just bring my own chair. Silence. Then one woman smiled, another nodded. The energy in the room turned. After that, no one asked why she was there. More grants came, a pilot in Alabama, then Mississippi. The Maynard Foundation, named after Carl's late mother, announced a new initiative for housing first trauma recovery. Ava helped write the framework. Her name went in the opening credits, but she still took the bus most days, still kept an extra scarf in her drawer, just in case someone walked in cold and unexpected. Her apartment was small, just enough. A balcony with a plastic chair and a potted herb that wouldn't grow. She liked it. One evening, Jaden rang the buzzer downstairs. He didn't wait for her to say anything. He just bounded up the steps, sneakers thudding, backpack swinging. He handed her a folded sheet of paper. Crayon. Scribbles. A woman with curly hair and a boy holding her hand. "I had to draw a hero for school," he said, grinning. Ava knelt. "You drew me." He nodded. "You're mine." She bit the inside of her cheek to stop the ache from climbing up her throat. "Thanks, kid," she said softly. "That means a lot." He didn't understand how much. On a rainy Thursday, she returned to the original shelter, the one with the flickering porch light and the bitter coffee. She sat in the same spot on the stoop, hands folded, watching a new group file in through the door. One woman lingered on the edge, arms crossed tight, eyes darting. Ava stood, approached slowly. "First time?" The woman nodded. "You're not broken," Ava said. The woman looked up. "Feels like it." Ava offered the gentlest smile. "You're just not in the right place. Yet." The woman blinked. A pause passed between them. Then she stepped forward, and inside,